what happened in Deuteronomy is now being completed in Revelation with Jerusalem. When I look at this book and I keep continuing to see it, everything points to the fact that God decimated Jerusalem in AD 70. And I know I killed that horse and shot it some more, but when you look at it in that perspective and that framework, I think you begin to understand Revelations better. Again, guys, all of this is a picture. It's another picture, I believe, of the seals. Remember, the seals were decreation. It was everything coming to a stop. Now here we have a third of everything being destroyed, and all these things can be that you can go back and make connections to Old Testament Israel, Jerusalem, and their apostasy from God. Actually, we're gonna jump ahead. I want you to go to Revelations 8, but I want you to go to chapter verse 6. So let's go to verse 6 first of all, and we're going to start there. We're going to start at verse 6 and read to the end of the chapter, and then we'll come back and read the first part. Okay? All right, very good. So let's just briefly run through this. Okay? These verses are important, and what's interesting, if you notice, there's a number that keeps popping up. What is that number?
Third.
A third. Okay? It's interesting. Why a third? What's a third mean? Well, in biblical numerology, 3 is also another form of completeness, like 7, right? Third is a kind of a picture of completeness, or completeness, right? It's thorough, right? It kind of takes care of everything. What's interesting though, he says that a third of all these things is destroyed. A third. Now here's my question for you. This is an obvious question. Does that mean everything is destroyed? A third. That's right. Not everything is destroyed. It's pretty bad, but it's the third. Now this is just kind of interesting. We don't see this number showing up with the seals, right? But here in the trumpets, we see a third of all these things. So here's Paul's best theological determination. It's complete, right? It's what God establishes, but it's not complete and total devastation. Okay? That's interesting. Now remember, let's interpret this again. I'm using the framework of he is talking about Jerusalem in AD 70. Okay, they killed the prophets, they killed the Christ, and Jesus made lots of promises that these tribulations would come upon this generation, that generation, and this is what's happening. Okay, so when we look at this, we see a lot of things happening, and if this is true, then we have to observe it through the framework of this stuff is talking about Jerusalem. So the first angel blows his trumpet, all right? Hail, fire mixed with blood, thrown upon the earth, okay? Now, was that literal? Well, it could have been. The Romans used all kinds of like things to shoot. What are those things called, y'all? Catapult, thank you. Right? Some people said that could have resembled the hail and fire, right? Mixed with blood, well, yeah, when they hit you, there's blood, obviously, right? That could be part of the literalness of this picture, but we don't know. We know that these things are falling. The third of the earth is burned. Third of the trees are burnt up. And here's interesting, all green grass was burned up, right? So even though a third of the trees, right, a third of the earth, but he's saying all the grass is burned up. Wow, okay? So if we take it that trees could resemble something symbolically as the people of God, which we've seen that before, we've seen the trees be symbolic of that, right? Then he even says that people are like grass, but he's saying all the grass is burnt up. So again, here's a picture, maybe, possibly, and I think I'm on solid ground here. God is preserving enough, but that which is to die will die, okay? And in this case, we're talking about Jerusalem. We're talking about the Jewish people who disobeyed God. This is the beginning of complete and utter ruin for them. Okay? Now, if you have a question, ask. Okay? So I'm just going to run down through this a little bit. Verse 8, the second angel blows his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire is thrown into the sea. Okay? Well, if you go back all the way to Exodus 15:17, Jerusalem is compared to a great mountain. Okay? And whenever you see the sea being discussed throughout Revelations or other passages, the sea is a lot of times referring to wicked people because the ocean is unstable, it's always moving, it moves with the wind, it moves with the tides, it's unstable, right? And so a lot of places like Isaiah, even Jude talks about wicked men being unstable, right? Blown like rainless clouds kind of thing, right? And then again later in Revelation 17, we're going to see people being discussed as ocean or the sea. So Jerusalem is like a burning fire is being thrown into the sea. Okay? This great mountain is being thrown. And a third of the sea becomes blood, a third of the living creatures die, a third of the ships are destroyed. Again, it's not in complete and total devastation, but it's pretty bad. Again, this is, I think, a good picture for us of Jerusalem. Verse 10, the third angel blows, a great star falls from heaven, blazing like a torch, falls on a third of the rivers, on the springs of water. Now here's what's interesting. In verse 11, he gives us a very important clue. The name of the star is wormwood. Hello, that is very super specific. Well, again, going all the way back to Deuteronomy 29:18, we get a definition of wormwood. It basically means bitter water. And in fact, in the context of Deuteronomy 29, he's again talking about how Jerusalem and Israel, because of their apostasy, because they had mingled with all the nations, they were worshiping all the idols, they had forgotten Yahweh, the Lord their God, right? He says that you are like bitter water. And so this star is wormwood, and it falls and pollutes the water, and many people die, right? Now, if you think about it, there's a lot of connections here to also with Egypt, right? All these seals and bowls and trumpets, there's connections all the way back to the plagues of Egypt too. So John is seeing this stuff, but it's all within the framework of the plagues. And so we know that back in the plagues, this happened too, right? The waters turned to blood in Egypt. Verse 12, the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, a third of the stars, so that a third of their light might be darkened, a third of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. Again, we've seen symbolic connections to Israel being sun and moon and stars, right? So we have that picture again being brought up. But when we talk about darkness, it's interesting, there's lots of passages that refer to darkness depicting like the fall of nations or leaders, okay? I just want to show you a couple of these real quick. Isaiah 13. Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land a desolation and to destroy its sinners from it. For the stars of the heavens and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark at its rising. The moon will not shed its light. I will punish the world for its evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will put an end to the pomp of the arrogant, and lay low the pompous pride of the ruthless. All right? And then again, we can look later in chapter 24, all the way down to verse 19. And there's a bunch of these. I won't share them all. The earth is utterly broken. The earth is split apart. The earth is violently shaken. The earth staggers like a drunk man. It sways like a hut. Its transgression lies heavy upon it, and it falls and will not rise again. And on that day the Lord will punish the hosts of heaven in heaven, and the kings of the earth on the earth. They will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit. They will be shut up in a prison, and after many days they will be punished. Then the moon will be confounded, the sun ashamed, for the Lord of hosts reigns on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders. And I could go on and on. There's passages in Isaiah 34, Ezekiel 32, Joel 2. We see this shaking of leadership. We see this shaking of the nations and things going dark, where the sun is darkened, the moon is darkened. Again, guys, all of this is a picture. It's another picture, I believe, of the seals, Remember, the seals were decreation. It was everything coming to a stop. Now here we have a third of everything being destroyed, and all these things can be that you can go back and make connections to Old Testament Israel, Jerusalem, and their apostasy from God. I'm beginning to be more of the persuasion that these pictures, these trumpets, these bowls, these seals, are the same thing. They're not like the military waves of battle. Like first we hit them with the air defenses and destroy them from the air, and then we send in the ground troops and we pummel their villages and towns. I don't think it's like waves. I think it's like 3 different types of pictures of the same thing happening. I mean, Jerusalem was destroyed from 67 to 70 AD. Again, terrible tribulation, terrible time.
I know, because I heard like the whole, they thinking it was fire and all that was nuclear, and I know Wormwood was the name of the reactor in Chernobyl back in and it destroyed the forests and the water and
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so,
exactly. I don't know. Yeah, well, again. Here's where I'm going to go with this. I think this thing was framed for Jerusalem. But I don't think God has stopped.
Yeah.
Was Chernobyl some kind of a judgment against Russia? Could have been. Could have been.
Yeah.
And you're right. Everything was contaminated.
Yeah.
Good picture. Yeah. I mean,
and so I'm like,
modern
is
times,
that the kind
like,
of stuff that John was seeing that he could only describe as? So it's like that's what gets me because
I know.
I'm like, which way is it?
Yeah.
And
I would say this. I think John was seeing. What John was seeing was Jerusalem. Okay, I'm just kind of convinced of that. But again, I think there are principles that continue all through history for us to pay attention to. Just like you're saying, why would Chernobyl be Wormwood?
Yeah.
I mean, did somebody look at the Bible and go, hey, let's name this big nuclear reactor Wormwood? Because you never know, it might crumble. No, it's like, how do those connections happen, right? I don't know. I'm not God. And that's the thing about this. The more I study this, the more I realize, okay, wow, God is just, he's got this. And I'm just nothing. I'm 120 years on the speck of history. I'm nothing but a sand on the beach. This is like a flash in the pan for me. I'm not going to understand all that God is doing.
And it's why he tells you to keep watch.
Yeah.
We're going to know the signs when they have, so either way.
Well, look at the world as it is right now. I mean, when warfare begins anywhere, nothing is not affected. I mean, everything gets affected. Animals, the land, creatures, the infrastructure of cities and nations. So yeah, I mean, all these things. And my point is this: I don't think God is just sitting by going, look at Russia and Ukraine. Never would have saw that coming. No, I think God's up there. I think, and this is Paul, I think God's up there going, he's stirring something for his kingdom and his will. Do I know what it is at the end of the day? Nope, I don't. No clue. I mean, everything we see happening, even right now, transpiring in our world. I mean, this is that season, y'all. And we know this is the season of just like intense political fervor. I mean, everybody's got their panties in a wad. Everybody's freaking out. It's just where we're at. But we see this stuff happening, and it's like, God is in charge of this, y'all. He knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And quite possibly, we're reaping what we sow. If we get Kamala as president, we're reaping it. Now, there's also other people on the other side that will say, well, if we get Trump, we're reaping it.